Hi, my name is Marie Vickles, and it has been my honor to curate this year's National Young Arts Week exhibition. This exhibition features a selection of works by artists representing the next generation of visual storytellers and designers. These works are special gifts that have traversed time and space to present us with compelling messages from the future. The featured artworks channel a variety of mediums that include painting, photography, ceramics, digital art, fashion, video, and multimedia. The carefully selected materials not only inform the physical shapes and dimensions of the work, but also tell us about the makers. The unique processes and path of how these artists have found various ways to create their work are evident in each line of ink, a brushstroke of paint, selection of colors, and an imprint or image of their very bodies within the pieces. Imagination also remains the invisible but most necessary of all the mediums that connect every artist in this collective presentation. The themes of self-exploration and soul-searching are prevalent across the selected mediums as the artists bring into physical existence objects from their innermost minds. Space and place are also critical themes, explored through the ideas that encourage the viewer to imagine how we might live in harmony with our physical world, ourselves, and one another, or not. The selected works establish new paradigms and possibilities for what community, commerce, and relationships might look like, pulled from visions grounded in a future reality, informed by the contested present, challenging past, and the thrilling possibilities of the unknown. This visual journey continues as the lines begin to blur between space and place, while the rich variety of media utilized creates a myriad of complementary narratives that tell more than one story. The journey also turns inward with imagery pulled from the depths of personal and collective experiences that examine current events no longer serving our mental or physical well-being. To say that change begins within is to oversimplify the infinite loop of how past and future are freshly recreated in each work of art. These works should be viewed as expressions of energy, manifested from the infinite creative source that always has and always will connect the collective of humanity back to itself. This exhibition of work is to be experienced and treasured through each viewing. These visual images and messages from the future have been delivered. It is up to us now to receive, accept, and understand that which we have so graciously been gifted. I hope you will enjoy this exhibition as much as I do. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erin Saya, and I'm a sophomore from Seattle, Washington. My design journey started at a very young age when I was gifted my first paper fashion design kit. Through that kit, I was able to explore my creativity in fashion design. While creating my paper scarf, I was reminded of the joy that I had experienced when I received my paper fashion design kit and I created my own outfits. From a young age, my parents always reminded me that posture is one of the first few things a person notices when you first meet them. With that being said, I wanted to create a bold accessory that would showcase the confidence and demonstrate the unique experience to each user. To elaborate, the shape of the scarf will never look the same when worn by different people, so that means each person's look will never be replicable. Over quarantine, I picked up sign language by taking online courses at a nearby community college. When learning about the culture, history, and the language behind ASL, my interest was piqued even more. I wanted to express communication in a more accessible way by creating posters that could grasp people's attention. I made sure that they were both translated in ASL as well as English to show inclusivity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tiana Barton, and I'm from Dayton, Ohio. The work that was selected is from a series I did called Dwelling Maturation, and that's based on my own self-growth and finding my own inner peace through nature. A lot of the work that I do focuses on the human body, nature, and then that relationship between people and nature. Even if someone says that they don't like the outdoors, they don't like going on hikes or being outside in general, as soon as you show them a photo of a mountain or give them a flower, their first instinct is to smell the flower and their eyes light up when they see that photo. So I like to capture that within my work. I like to see the natural instinct of wanting to smell the flower, or touch the grass, or roll in the snow. And that's also why I love to shoot with film, because you only have a certain amount of photos in that roll, and you can't see the photos as you're taking them. So I feel that that really presents me the opportunity to shoot exactly what I see and how I see it. I also really like to use natural light because it kind of forms the human body as a landscape, and it gives these nice shadows to the human body. So in a lot of my work, you'll see a lot of play with light to portray those shadows. As for my work personally, I feel that it relates to my own personal calmness and how I found that peace throughout nature. I love going on hikes, and so I wanted to portray that beauty of the outdoors within my photography. So I hope that through my photography, people can see that and they can also almost relate to it. Young Arts in general was such a great opportunity, and I'm so glad that I got to participate in it. I want to thank everyone, and I also want to thank all the artists that were here because we had fantastic conversation, and I feel that throughout the week I was really able to grow within my photography. Thank you.
I'm Sophia Bassett. I'm a student at Interlochen Arts Academy, and my body of work is about childhood memories and exploring those mundane moments in life that kind of get lost in the hustle and bustle, and kind of reimagining them into bigger imaginative pieces and creating them into works of art that kind of that won't get lost in the memories that I'm going to create in the future. My artistic practice starts off by one initial sketch, and then I go right into working. I quickly make up a garment or drop an idea for a print, and then I will document the piece by setting up my camera and then doing a self-timer, taking pictures. And then as soon as I'm done taking pictures, I insert my SD right into the computer and I work and edit the pictures together to then imagine how I can create, take a garment, make that a piece, and then take the photographs and imagine new life into that, making a new piece.
So as you're doing this process, do you oftentimes see the photographs you've taken and edit the piece itself that you've just photographed? Does it feed back?
Yeah, it feeds back into new pieces that I'm going to create by thinking about the repeating patterns and how I can use that as a backdrop for new pieces.
All right. And in the future, you hope to expand this into
more installation art that really immerses the viewer into my memories, and thinking about how a memory is linear, but what happens when you switch up the order of the story? What happens when you start in the middle and you go to the end and then the beginning?
All right. Look forward to some site-specific installation with Sophia Bassett.
Hi everybody, my name is Nolan Maze II, and I'm from West Orange, New Jersey. And the first camera I ever bought was about $25. I spent $20 on Depop getting a camera body that couldn't be used unless it was duct tape, and the lens came from my mom, her oldest camera that she had before I was even born. And my first models were my friends, the people who let me take really bad pictures of them for their Instagrams and different things like that. But what I realized through all of that is that I had an intimate connection with these people, and I had the ability to tell their stories. A lot of the time when you see Black and brown kids, teenagers specifically, they're often demonized and their stories aren't told correctly. What I had the ability to do was actually tell the stories of my friends. Like, I knew them on an intimate level, and I knew what they were capable of and all the things that they did in their lives. So I had the ability to kind of create the series Black Privilege, and Black Privilege is just a reflection of that, seeing Black and brown teenagers in the way that I want them to be seen by people in the media and by people all over the country. So it's kind of these upscale moments that I've made and farmed, I guess you could say, because they're not models, they're my friends. But I feel as though that's the best way to see them, because for the average person, you're not seeing a Black teenager be a demon. You're seeing them be them. and deal with real things such as emotions, ups, downs, all different types of things that regular teenagers go through. Because at the end of the day, photography is about bringing humanity out of people. And I feel like that's what I'm doing through my series, Black Privilege. So enjoy the photos, and thank you so much, Young Arts, for the opportunity.
Hello, my name is Caroline Birthman. I am a senior at Design and Architecture Senior High School in Miami, Florida, and I'm a visual artist. Having been strictly raised in the respective Brazilian and Bolivian cultures, my mother and father, there are social and cultural differences within the Rontil life I lived in and outside of my home. The fortune of having visited and lived in each country over the years has been a privilege, allowing for the particulars like language, such as Spanish and Portuguese, traditions and folklore, as shared by family members, to form my persona and my lifelong interests, like art. As I grew to realize and deeply appreciate my family members who formed the most direct cultural influences in me, shared a very strong and collective cultural identity that was brought from their respective countries of Brazil and Bolivia. And when they immigrated to the United States, the fact that family members from both sides never lost their cultural roots and were able to pass on traditions to me became one of the biggest gifts of all. And it essentially is the catalyst for my interest in creating, designing, and my love for the arts. And for these reasons, the focal points of my artwork are to always represent my culture and my background through depictions of the events from personal moments I have, through the environments I lived in, and through cultural and social experiences and immediate relationships with my family. Same is expressed via my inclusion of photography as part of my artwork, which I've taken in my home, capturing candid but very intimate moments of my family and I, and using them as elements in my pieces collage. And I decided to depict my family members in all my pieces as the major source of my own identity and protection against many hardships we have faced as immigrants. My first piece is titled Sobremesa de Familia, which translates to Sobremesa of Family, which became the catalyst that inspired my whole body of work. In Latin cultures, the term sobremesa is used to describe time spent after a meal, sometimes hours after a meal, where family or friends, or even just regular companions, continue to sit at the table and enjoy each other's company. Piece is a depiction of the sacred moment my family and I have around a modest dinner table every day, and it is a significant part of my Latin upbringing and culture, as it is a time in which we allow ourselves to forge connections with others. Second piece, Cozinha de Mãe, which translates to Mom's Kitchen, is a depiction of my mother cooking, a demonstration of her maternal presence in my upbringing and care, significant in my household and as a Brazilian and Bolivian. And she's the most important woman in my life, as she's had a significant impact on the development of my character and who I am today. And finally, my piece, Vovó Darcy fazendo rosquinhas, which translates to Grandma Darcy making cookies, is the depiction of my great-grandmother making rosquinhas, which is the delicately rolled cookies, in her humble kitchen in rural Brazil. She's my mother's grandmother and the woman who raised her. So she was my mother's main maternal figure growing up, and I've had the privilege to grow up with her as well. And I wanted to depict this environment where she's still in her old age doing what she loves. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Isabella Cookson, and I'm a queer printmaker from Miami, Florida. My artwork is a love letter to my childhood. Through the printing of cyanotype, I explore my own personal passage of time, untangling the stories and revealing the effects of trauma on my memory, identity, and body. Creating with the emphasis on perseverance rather than sorrow, the physical process of creating prints is an act of reclaiming what is mine. I imagine a blooming, colorful future, not just blue and like my cyanotypes. My work is a manifestation of wanting to remember, a commitment to growth, and a hope for a life with more clarity. My work is unashamedly autobiographical, portraits from the past and present. My prints are visual narratives in which I explore the intersections of memory with my Brazilian American heritage, my gender, and my queer identity. Dance is integral to my artistic process. To me, dance is a metaphor for wanting to let go and having fun. Much of the queer experience is punctuated by hardship, and I challenge this narrative. When I first started creating dancing, I often record myself dancing in my room to my favorite music, and that's where the imagery in Dear Miss Shapanka, practice does make perfect, comes from. In this print, I'm coming back to the activities I did as a child, orchestra and ballet. My violin teacher would often say, Miss Shapanka would often say, practice makes perfect, you always have to practice. And as a child, I did not follow this, but now I realize the importance of this statement. Another memory that inspires a lot of my artwork is when I first subverted society's expectations of gender when I was 7 years old. Festa Junina is an important celebration in Brazilian culture, and it's a celebration where communities gather, eat, and dance to celebrate Catholic saints. As a part of my assignment for my Portuguese class, my classmates and I would be paired, boys and girls would be paired to dance together and learn more about the celebration. Another classmate and I were left pairless without another male pair. So my teacher said, it's okay, we can just have 2 girls dancing. I was not happy with this. I instead took it upon myself to dress in drag, dress masculine, to better fit the aesthetics of their performance. Festa, this is the time I first performed in drag. Festa is an ode to that story. Chosen Family, Dance With Me, and Them are about my present-day experiences with the queer community. In Chosen Family, I dance with my chosen family, a family in which I'm able to share my whole self with. In Them, I share the joys and hardships of being a non-binary person. I really hope you guys enjoyed my artwork. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Jack Dunlap, and I'm a senior at the High School for the Performing and Visual Arts in Houston, Texas. And today I'm going to be giving you a brief explanation as to my artwork that has been selected in the online exhibition for Young Arts. My work tends to be centered around architectural elements and specific places surrounding me, and I tend to use found objects to bring more character to the places I am portraying. Specifically in cross-section and pillar, I've used found elements to communicate the key architectural styles and elements quintessential to construction sites around me as new developments begin to become more prevalent in my area.
Hi, I'm Raisa Ephras, and I'm currently a junior at Harvard Westlake in Los Angeles. My photography primarily focuses on questions of identity and altered realities, both out in the world and in my own spaces. For my Young Arts portfolio, I wanted to create a photo series about my dad that deals with introspection, storytelling, and the passage of time. This body of work, entitled Son of a Junk Man, acts as an homage to the life my dad has built, as well as a tradition of storytelling between father and daughter. He has always been guarded in the way he presents himself to the world, but when it's just the two of us, he has a way of making his past come alive that I thought deserved to be shared. This series was truly a collaborative process. I used my brothers as models to represent the different stages of my dad's life, and I had my dad handwrite his own captions, because he can say so much in so few words. I also chose to shoot exclusively in black and white, his favorite method. These select works that you're seeing appear at the beginning of the series, depicting how my dad grew up in the family junkyard business. Through a mixture of portraiture and landscape photography, with special attention to texture and light, I hope to capture how his gritty yet sentimental childhood years shaped him and prepared him for the rest of his life. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Zoe, and in my work, I gravitate towards exploring concepts of the avant-garde and sort of pursuing fashion as the architecture of the human body, and I do this mainly by deriving inspiration from my biological surroundings. So this first piece is called Escapology, and it's a unisex straitjacket that I created using 100% upcycled white denim, and I think here I was really trying to project the feelings of confinement that society has felt over the past couple of years onto that of a straitjacket. So this piece can be worn crossed through the arms to sort of represent that entrapment, as well as loosened liberally to sort of be breaking away from those imposed restraints. And I think that the unisex adaptation of this really provides a universal feeling to it all and sort of that human interference. This next piece, titled Alkalinity, Living Among the Fluid Waters, is an untamed testament to a longing for experimentation, affinity to nature, and learned practices of sustainability. Through biomimetics, this piece is the embodiment of motion and fluidity of water onto humanity. So I was looking at water as not only just a means of substance, but rather this ranging shadow full of pulsating forms cast over humanity for us to enjoy. So just as we splash our faces with water every morning, this piece aims to splash the minds of the viewer and invoke the feeling of life into their body. And I did this by sort of intertwining the garment with the wearer, and this way sort of allowing the human body to act as this auxiliary component to the natural world through the lens of fashion design. This final piece is titled Rosalia longicorn, and if you look up Rosalia longicorn into Google, you'll find exactly what my inspiration was, which is the black and blue longhorn beetle. Here I was really just trying to cast sort of an insect divinity onto the human body, especially the female form. And by doing that, I was, enhancing the curves and graceful anatomy of the insect. And I did this using upcycling techniques so as to not directly harm the environment that I'm trying to depict. And I think that this piece was really just an exploration of form and line and seeing what I could create with the fabric that I was using. No matter what form my work will take on in the future, I will always be a designer. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.
Hi, my name is Kyla Haarn, and I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm currently a senior in high school, and my work speaks to my emotions and concerns about teenagers' mental health. In my work, I aim to explore the intersection between art and psychology. When curating these pieces, I took a deep dive into researching how these topics affect young adults while also taking time to reflect on my own journey. Making sense of the important transitions that adolescents face in their search for independence and identity are at the core of my work. I began this journey by examining how one can capture emotion through portraiture and by looking at what exact emotions portray struggles and anxiety. In my first piece titled Fog, I aim to look at how adolescents view the body and what emotions evoke negative body image. In this piece, I illustrated the struggle in viewing yourself and your body in a positive light, as this is no easy task when journeying into adulthood. I illustrated my hazy self-image. As other adolescents, I struggled with viewing myself without judgment or doubt. In my second piece titled Lost, I used a long exposure and aimed to capture balancing different emotions and the mask we create to protect ourselves. I find that there is a beauty in going through struggles, facing your deepest thoughts, fears, and embracing everything along the road. In my final piece titled Escape, I highlighted what it means to be a teenager in this day and age. Everything is fast-paced and in a constant race. I used a slow shutter speed to capture an endless chase of concerns, expectations, and responsibilities. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Thomas Hicks. I'm a mixed media artist located in Greenville, South Carolina. And in my work, I use found images, found family images, found random images, and I create stand-in portraits to create a storyline of what family is to me. In this work selected save, /repair, I was actually inspired by the RISD assignment, and with that assignment, I was making work that means what repair means to me. And for me, I wanted to create a scenario of a family being torn apart, referencing some of me, referencing people I know, referencing just things I see in the media. And I wanted to use something as intricate and delicate as crochet to, I guess I see it as kind of like me. I know I am a very soft, sometimes more feminine person, so I use crochet in that manner and using it very the chain stitch to make a chain, pulling it together type of hard, playing on that hard and soft type thing. And then for the actual images, these are found family images, and I don't know who these people are, but I wanted to create the storyline of the other woman or a family being separated. Yeah, and I just want to play on the wedding and the other person. Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey guys, my name is Sarah Houma, and I'm a painter from San Antonio, Texas. My work is about finding solace in the Mexican-American identity. As a first-generation Mexican-American, the child of immigrants, I often felt that I was isolated from both the Mexican and American worlds. I felt that I was stuck in a frontier of sorts and was never fully integrated into either the Mexican or the American community. As a child, I felt that I was too brown for America, yet too white for Mexico. And I found shame in the fact that I was stuck in a borderlands between both communities. My work has enabled me to explore my identity and fully embrace what it means to be Mexican American. I've found that it's fully acceptable to find yourself isolated from two communities. It's fully acceptable to be in a frontier and call that place home, because although I felt isolated from my communities, the frontier isn't a community in and of itself. So many people have found a space in that community alongside you. And my work is about exploring those communities and painting the identity that I always wanted to see for myself as a child. When I was little, I always wanted to look up at a painting and see myself reflected in those stories. And so my work is about giving those stories to children like me who feel that their fragmented identities don't have representation in the media. So I urge you to explore my work through this lens. Mexican American or not, I encourage you to think of your own frontiers. Think of your own communities that you have made a space in and how they have shaped you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Natalie Kennedy, and I'm a junior at Lawrence High School in Lawrence, Kansas, and my discipline is photography. The series is titled Lingering, and it is about patient anxiety in the medical field, and it is visually focused in the setting of the doctor's office. This series is inspired by an unpleasant personal experience that I had while visiting for what was supposed to be a very quick and easy checkup, and it did not turn out that way. I ended up spending 1.5 hours altogether in the room waiting. All of my emotions, movements, and thoughts seemed to linger while I was waiting in the room, hence the title, Lingering. I looked around and absorbed everything that I saw in the room, so I decided to create a series that would reflect my exact emotions and thoughts while waiting, such as wondering if the doctor was going to harm me with the tools that I saw, or if the doctor had enough knowledge to be there, hence the anatomy book. In terms of access, I have great access to medical supplies and tools and locations through my parents, because my dad is a doctor and my mom is a nurse. These include the jars full of band-aids, the tools, and the anatomy book. I wanted to capture the anxious emotions and movements of the patient using hand gestures that switch throughout the series, which are shown on the right. The hand gestures start off as calm, with hands folded together, patiently waiting. Then the hand gestures quickly become more anxious, such as grabbing onto the sheets out of fear. On the left, I wanted to capture each of the settings of the doctor's office and bring the small yet unsettling details into the frame. These details might seem minute to the viewer, but in my mind while I was waiting, these created a very strong sense of fear within me, such as the sharp tools sitting on the counter. Overall, this series was a lot of fun to create, and I hope that I can bring the viewer to the same situation that I was in through my photos.
Hey, my name is Cheiwan Kim, and I'm a finalist in design arts. Most of my work falls in the category of product design, and I make it using CAD software. I think a lot of why everyday objects look the way they do, why we expect certain objects to look a certain way. Once you start thinking about it, it's really hard to stop, and you start reimagining how they can look and how they can be manipulated to convey your own message. I'd say my work is characterized by the shapes I use. I like to use a lot of round and bulbous shapes because I love how whimsical and grotesque they look. My first piece is Migration, and it's an exploration of how I can convey change we experience in the world and the moods we go through using cups. With this collection, I want to show the different personalities an object can have, using only minimal color and relying on the shapes and form. My next piece is the Monster Moth logo. These were for a hair dye brand I designed. Especially after quarantine, hair color has become a symbol of self-initiative, self-transformation. I felt like moths with their unnatural colors and their kind of intimidating shapes
were something that should be embodied in self-representation. My final piece is the balloon wall light. This was part of my furniture collection called Balloon, and it was very much inspired by the visual appearance of oil spills and the forms it takes on water. Oil spills are obviously disruptive and terrible for the environment, but there is something so visually interesting about them. And with this sconce, I want to express the coexistence of beauty and grotesque we see in life. And I hope you enjoy my work. Thank you.
My name is Cheiwan Kim, and I'm from Los Angeles, California, and my photo project explores sort of my perspective as a third-generation Korean American through a photo series about my grandmother. My grandmother immigrated to the United States in the 1960s. Even though I spent a lot of time with her, we were still separated by technology and most importantly by language. And so during the pandemic, I sort of wanted to sort of peer back into her space and sort of explore how my sort of dual Korean American experience impacts how I see my family and my culture and my grandmother. I wanted to explore the themes of intimacy and alienation and how sometimes I felt like an active participant in learning about my family history, and other times I felt like an outsider to my own culture. In the photograph of my grandmother's scars on her knees, I sort of wanted to capture a sense of objectivity or lack of emotion that I sometimes felt when language or difference of experience got in the way of emotional connection with my grandmother. In my photograph of my grandmother's bedside table with pictures of her extended family from across the US on it, I want to get the sense that despite there being no actual people in the photograph, that looking at the photographs for me and for my grandmother create a sort of deep emotional connection between us and our extended family and sort of the extended immigration experience. And in the picture of looking over my grandmother's shoulder at her photo album of her family, I want to get the sense that you're actually there with my grandmother and hearing her stories of the family experience and her immigration. And overall, I want to depict the complex and sometimes contradictory feelings that I feel towards my culture and my family as a third-generation immigrant through pictures of my grandmother.
My name is Kate Kim, and currently I'm a sophomore at a boarding school in New Jersey called Petty. I've lived in Seoul, South Korea all my life, but since the start of high school, I've been living in New Jersey. Before getting into design, I was and still am an avid visual artist. I started creating art as early as 7, and recently I've been discovering and learning about my newfound interest in architecture and design. My project focuses on an issue that has been caused by a long history of architectural urban planning laws and policies. After delving deeper into this issue, I discovered that a large percentage of communities and neighborhoods today are shaped the way they are due to the actions of mankind. After finding out this serious issue was man-made, I took it upon myself to come up with an architectural solution in an attempt to resolve this issue, just like how it was initially fabricated. The Delmar Divide refers to the invisible dividing line on the Delmar Boulevard, a major east-west street in St. Louis, which splits the city socioeconomically and racially. Due to a long history of residential segregation ordinances and racial covenants on housing on the city, there exists a dramatic disparity and differences in racial population makeup and socioeconomic indicators such as income, unemployment rate, and poverty. Based on my research, the Delmar Divide has become more stratified as a racial socioeconomic dividing line due to the scarce, limited economic resources and opportunities available to residents and businesses in the northern half. My project applies the concepts and ideas of a modular approach in architectural design and illustrates how they can be used to help bridge the Delmar Divide, a real-world phenomenon taking place in one of the most segregated cities of the United States. The Delmar Divide exemplifies the predicament of division in our society. This design approach is based on subdividing or segmenting a system into smaller units or parts called modules, which then can be used like Lego blocks in existing structures or to create new, various structures. At a conceptual level, the project contemplates a module system that is composed of distinct modules that are similar in relative size, but different in shape, and these modules can be reproduced independently and then linked up to each other by adding or combining to create an indefinite number of different structures or forms. By design, depending on particular purpose or use of the structure or form created, the dimensions, material composition, and fabrication process of the processes of the modules will necessarily vary. The overall design approach based on the module system compared to conventional or traditional architectural design approaches would be more versatile and efficient. And the modules themselves that make up the structure would be less costly to make. The images in the portfolio illustrate just two possible use cases of the module system. In terms of application, I believe it has great potential to help bring about meaningful change in communities and neighborhoods north of the Delmer Divide, as well as easing and minimizing the walls of division between the two neighborhoods of St. Louis. Thank you.
Hey y'all, my name is Evan. I'm a photographer from Dallas, Texas, and I want to talk to you guys about my America Divided portfolio. 2020, obviously a very controversial year, the very controversial presidential election. I was cooped up in my house and I saw fiery arguments being launched across the dinner table. And because of that, I began to see not only a growing rift within our nation, but a growing rift within my personal life between friends and even family members. Mass media's imminent pressure felt that people were no longer being judged based off their character, but rather their political beliefs. I never saw the world as shades of red and blue, black or white. Rather, it was always a blend of purple, a mix of gray. So through this portfolio, I wanted to highlight the effects of this growing divisiveness, not only within everybody's personal lives, but also in other sectors like science. And I wanted to highlight that though these issues are very important and can be very riveting, they are solely a means to craft a better future and a better nation that is more hospitable, more industrious, and more inclusive, so that hopefully we can all be proud to call this nation our home. Thank you.
Hey everybody, this is pianist Emmett Cohen. I'm a proud Young Arts alumnus, and I'm here with alumni Russell Hall on the bass, Benny Benak III on the trumpet, and Kyle Poole on the drums. And we want to wish Young Arts a very happy 40th birthday.
Happy birthday, Young Arts. I wish you continued success and many, many years ahead of bringing such a positive energy into our community.
Birthday, Young Arts. Oh my God, in 4 decades, the inspiration.
Here's to 40 years greatly impacting the lives of young artists. Happy birthday, Young Arts.
Young Arts, happy 40th anniversary. Happy birthday.
Young Arts, happy 40th birthday.
Happy birthday, Young Arts.
Why do I love Young Arts? I love Young Arts because Young Arts cares.
Congratulations. Oh, look, and they're calling me to set. All right. 40 years. Amazing. To 40 more and more.
Happy 40th birthday, Young Arts! Woo!
Young Arts, I don't know where I would be today without you. I probably would not be making films.
We love Young Arts. We love Young Arts.
Happy 40th birthday to Young Arts. I would not be the same artist that I am today without my Young Arts experience.
Happy, beautiful 40th birthday.
Thank you for 40 years of empowering, supporting, celebrating, and providing opportunities for young artists like 17-year-old me.
God bless you, Young Arts. You're the best.
Thank you. Happy birthday. I just don't know who I'd be without Young Arts.
Happy 40th birthday, Young Arts.
Thank you so much for all of your support throughout the years. It means the world to me to be a part of this family. Happy birthday.
You took me from crayons to perfume. Happy birthday, and may you have many, many more.
To one of my oldest, dearest, most encouraging and trusted friends, happy birthday, Young Arts.
Happy birthday to you.
Young Arts, I am super excited for your birthday. I am super not excited that you're younger than me. Happy birthday, Young Arts.
Happy 40th anniversary, Young Arts. Thank you so much for all you've done for me and what you continue to do for the community.
Happy 40th. All of us here at New York Live Arts, thank you very much for including us.
Happy 40th birthday, Young Arts.
I'm thrilled to be a part of this joyous 40th birthday celebration. Happy birthday, Young Arts.
Dear Young Arts, happy birthday, Young Arts, to you. Happy birthday, Young Arts. All right.
Hi, my name is Ethan Lin. I am a Design Arts Finalist. I live in Shanghai, China, but I'm currently studying in Gill, Massachusetts. The discipline that I focus on is architecture. As a design artist, I feel like we design to definitely tell a story. And in my architectural design, I tell the story of my life and what aspects help shape me and who I have become. In my first piece, I definitely tell the story of my life. The Breathing Wall. Despite growing up in Shanghai, like a metropolitan like Shanghai, I have spent most of my summers in Maine. And in this piece, I try to illustrate that by containing trees and modern architecture. This piece also shows my love towards nature and how I want to protect nature. The second piece also pays homage to my experience in Maine, as when living in Maine, I lived by a river, and 7-year-old me always wanted to create houses by the river. As I grew as an artist and an architect, I definitely fulfilled my childhood dreams as I illustrate 3D designs of houses by the water. In my third piece, The Spiral of Life, I try to illustrate my definition of 3 phases of life as birth, growth, and death. In my fourth piece, Walking in the Sky, I would illustrate Taoism as a famous phrase in Tao, where 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things, where this 3 would be human, earth, and heaven, and all things are created as the 3 layers and 3 houses. That basically wraps up my design portfolio, and thank you, Young Arts, for a phenomenal experience.
My name is Kaija Lewis, and I'm a Young Arts visual artist. Most of my work deals with themes of culture, identity, family, and history. I do this by collaging old family photos with photos from the modern day and layering ink, acrylic, graphite, color pencil, and watercolor on top. Tephomet is a piece that I made that is inspired by my family's culture. The title translates to The Promised Land, which is a reference to the biblical story of the children of Israel and mirrors my dad's journey from Haiti to America. In the piece, I layered old family photos and photos from the modern day in Photoshop and played with different layer opacities to get that vintage, muted look.
Hello, I'm Tonic. I'm a senior in high school and a finalist in design arts. I've always liked making things, and under the tutelage of some great school teachers, that began to develop into art. But for a long time, my art was very concrete and solid. I'd be making things, beautiful things, but things that were immediately identifiable as a table or a lamp. This series comes from a desire to break out of that practicality and make art that existed solely to be viewed and interacted with. I was walking around the studio and just got really inspired to play around with some old tools we had and see how I could change their context. These first 2 were the first ones I made, and what I'm essentially doing is removing control from the user. Tools exist to be controlled, towards a purpose, to achieve that purpose. And if a tool suddenly betrays you like this and gains a mind of its own, that there's a human response to that, which is initially discomfort, and with the realization of why that discomfort is there, humor. Both of these are very linear objects meant to direct force in one single direction, and I'm essentially giving them more degrees of freedom, more dimensions in which they can move, and they become more temperamental, alive, and funnier because of that. The same is true of these screwdrivers, but the process was a little different because I was working on the relationship between the two as much as each one individually. The one on the right uses a welded chain. It's on the whole a lot more complicated than the one on the left, and because of that, they achieved their near uselessness in very different ways, and that contrast is really fun. I finished up my collection by placing them in this fun toolbox I made from scraps. The shape is an imperfect form of the very standard, wooden toolbox design, and scraps are designed to be thrown away. So once again, I'm giving objects a new purpose. While it looks really great alone, it's especially cool as a display vessel for all these useless tools, because someone who sees it has to immediately ask themselves several questions about what it means and how it behaves, and that interaction is exactly what I hope to achieve.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaija Marrero and I'm a mixed media visual artist from Miami, Florida. In my body of work, I primarily focus on this separation of gender in Latin community. So gender stereotypes are heavily imposed on young people all throughout the Latin world, and I grew up with all of these stereotypes and gender norms and gender roles, and I thought that because of what my gender is or how I identify as, I had to act and think and even dress a certain way. So I identify as a cisgender female, and I had specific roles I had to do within my family at such a young age because I'm a female. But as I grew up, I came to the realization that I didn't have to conform to all of these stereotypes. I didn't have to follow these ideals that I grew up with. And I was frustrated. I was frustrated that I couldn't really express myself because I couldn't dress a certain way or even do certain things or act a certain way or think a certain way. But all of this frustration, I used it now in order to do my art. I use all of these stories that I grew up with and all of these things that I had in my life. I use that in my artwork in order to portray this gender separation, in order to shed a light on it. And my art is just filled with all of these observations that I have growing up, and even to this day, like all the observations I have now of all of these gender roles and stereotypes. And I use the Spanish language itself also has that separation in the language, and I use that in my artwork as well. I also love to describe my artwork as, I guess, my brain on paper, because essentially that is what it is. It's just how I visualize my brain processing all of these stories and all of these emotions and just all of these experiences and just everything. And I love to experiment with like the composition and the color and the materials itself in order to portray these stories.
Hi, my name is Jaden Martinez. I'm a visual arts finalist in the 2022 Young Arts competition. I've been doing art for about 8 months. I'm specifically a ceramic artist. At the time of my submission, I had only been doing art at all for 8 months, which is, I think, pretty cool, but whatever. I kind of just stumbled across my ceramic art classroom, the studio, and it was really pretty and it felt like comforting and safe, so I kind of went with it, and I took the class in the second semester of my junior year, and it turned out to be a really healing process for me, and I think that's something that I really want to share with other people in the future. And it's kind of just, it makes me feel good about myself, and also part of my inspirations would be specifically my teacher Brandon Barrett. Also, I took inspiration from Matt Haarn. He's a UK ceramic artist, and Danny Messenger. I'm not quite sure where he's from, but he's honestly just the best of the best. Specifically for the 3 pieces that you are looking at, I think there's 3 pieces. I'm not quite sure how they're gonna do this at all, but specifically for one of my pieces called A Peek at the Soul, I took a lot of inspiration from Stephen Y. Lee in his set of works entitled Breaking Tradition. I really loved how the broken pots looked, and I kind of wanted to mimic that in my own way. And it just so happened, honestly, that one of my crystalline pots fit inside, and I went with it. I think it had like a really pretty kind of like, I don't know what the word is, but it felt right, you know? And my other piece is Nightcap. I love that piece. It's like my pride and joy. The pillow is made of plaster, and it's so cool. I took inspiration from my teacher on that one. He had a piece that kind of looked soft in a way, and I really wanted to mimic that soft texture in such a hard substance. And then my other piece, Spiritually Weathered, I really don't like that piece very much, but it was also kind of a mistake, and I just went with it, sort of. And yeah, that's that.
Hi, my name is Jaya Parker. I am from Dayton, Ohio, and I attend Starbuck School for the Arts. And this week for Young Arts, I disciplined in photography. The series that I won in was a reconstruction of Black males in the society we call today. I really put an emphasis on Black men of arts and kind of how they aren't really shown in fine art photography, and they're not really shown in fine arts in general. Often there's a stereotype that young Black men are only two things: sports and or in jail. And for this, it really hit home considering I am African American and I do come from a loving household. I was taught core values and what it meant to be Black. And this series, I wanted to emphasize young Black men in the sense of they are more than just that. I used 35mm cameras and shot in black and white to kind of emphasize their skin, their faces, the texture of their hair, lines in their faces. I wanted to get intimate with my subject only to show who they were and kind of show the young Black men who they were, as in terms of they were more than just those stereotypes. And with this series, I was able to shed a light to so many people on who they were and kind of what they stood for. In the portraits, the titles are kind of what the young Black men wanted them to be. So one of them was Devotion to You. One was the North Star. This was all created by them in regards to they are who they are, and I wanted the portraits to kind of show that. With this series, I spent a lot of time trying to understand why they were perceived as this way, considering like I know them. So with the series, I kind of made it a informative series on who they were and what they wanted to show, and Young Arts took it to the absolute next level for me. And I want to thank Young Arts for helping me with that tremendously. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Khadir Paris, and I'm a Young Arts Finalist of 2022 Visual Arts Discipline. And in my work, I'm talking about the topic of Black people occupying space in society. And in my work, I tried to find this space where we're able to express ourselves and be able to create while also getting away from society's prejudiced ideals towards people like me. The pictorial spaces that I'm creating is influenced from the abstract process found in jazz. The process brings an influential and expressionist feeling that implies rather than tells. I take familiar spaces and reinterpret them through the process of romantic deconstruction to create a new space in the piece. I start off with this abstract background that I created using house paint, acrylics, and printmaking skills that I've learned. Or I sometimes use the cyanotype of the photos that inspired this piece from coming about. Thank you so much for looking into my work and diving into my creative process as an artist. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
I'm Eleanor Pimentel, and I'm a finalist in Design Arts. I do primarily graphic design and interface design. My app design for Juno started with a problem I was feeling in my community. I run a menstrual equity club at my high school, and we talk about reproductive education, try to get local schools and businesses to offer free period products, and we collect pads and tampons for the homeless shelter. But one thing that's come up in our discussions is the experience of getting your first period, which for a lot of people is a really stressful experience. I listened to a lot of people's stories about how they didn't know what was happening to them, or they didn't know what was normal and what wasn't. And when a 12-year-old girl is turning to Google for answers about her menstrual health, then there are some issues. Juno is my attempt to answer that need. I wanted to design an app that would be specifically for menstruators in that young age range. I wanted to prioritize really accessible information and an uncomplicated tracker that wasn't going to be designed around measuring fertility. Unfortunately, I don't have the programming skills to make Juno a reality just now. But even just through creating this design, I've been able to open up some really great conversations about menstrual health in my community. And that's what I'm really most proud of in my work. Thank you.
My body of work is about how I can stage outdoor installations in order to communicate the emotional weight I carry by physically transferring weight onto trees. The first piece shown is called Binding, and in this piece I created an outdoor installation where I bound trees together using clear tape, and I watched how the trees adapted to their new conditions as time went on. So once a week for 3 weeks, I photographed the installation to see how it had changed. And after these 3 weeks ended, I cropped parts of each picture together to create a triptych that showed the passage of time. It is drawn in black ballpoint pen and hand-framed in hand-stained pine. I created the fluorescent orange spray-painted background using a stencil, and the orange creates a sense of warning and caution for the burdens shown. The second piece shown is called Rain. This piece was an exploration of how time could make the tree's burdens seem both lighter or heavier, similar to how my personal burdens can seem like easier to manage at times, but harder to manage at others. For this installation, I tied a tarp to 4 different trees the night before a rainstorm and let the tarp fill up with rain. So the following morning when I went to see what had occurred, the rain in the tarp had pulled the trees down with it. I took photos of the installation that morning and rendered one using a lot of positive negative space. The drawing was hand-framed in hand-stained pine and drawn in ballpoint pen as well. The third piece shown is called Light. The clear tarp in this installation is draped over trees, stopping them from receiving the nutrients and light they need to survive. I set up this installation and took the photograph at night in order to manipulate how the light looked when reflecting from the tarp onto the trees. This piece was made using black ballpoint pen and Indian ink.
My name is Abel Reyes and I'm a visual artist in Miami, Florida. I make work about the intersections of race, gender, ancestry, and religion. As a non-binary person, I have a fascination with gender expression. The work I produce is specifically made to honor the trans femme people around and who came before me. I reappropriate Christian iconography and use them into my pieces to bring my subject matter to states of sanctity. I am using a language that is once known for oppression and turning it into one of euphoria. I use my techniques of fashion design and construction to collage textile swatches into my drawings on paper. All of the textiles in my work are either from my own closet or thrifted and upcycled. My work uses motifs of pink and blue, the colors of the trans flag. It also relates to the red and blue that signifies Jesus through our history. The pieces on exhibition are Saint Mary, Divine Duality, and the Sanctity of Euphoria. Saint Mary is a self-portrait using garments with social ties to gender. The composition and religious symbols are in reference to Byzantine mosaics. Divine Duality is a double portrait of my great friend Mo, who spoke to me passionately before they came out. The piece signifies the self-states of a queer person, the opposing sides of the same form. Sanctity of Euphoria is a triple self-portrait, showing the stages of my confidence through transitioning. Thanks again to the Young Arts Foundation and everyone involved for this opportunity.
Hello everybody, my name is Jaden Robinson and I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. Today I really want to dive deep into my portfolio and I just want to let y'all know a little bit about it. So the name of my portfolio is called Modern Day Renaissance, and in my portfolio, what I do is I revive classical or older art, and I have a lot of references in my pieces of work. I have references to Andy Warhol, Gustave Rodin, and Basquiat. I can really say that these artists really influenced me, and mainly a lot of artists, and I'm still learning some today. I like surrealism, and I have a more of an ethereal type feel to my work. I can say for sure that why I'm making this work is more for the embodiment of showing that fundamentals and what our previous geniuses have made can still be used today to make amazing art. What they did was mainly path away from me. That's how I see it. I want to dive deep into one of my pictures, a modern day curse. And this is really the pinpoint to my portfolio. I talked about the story of Oedipus in my photo, and this is how we would see it in modern day standards, I can say. Oedipus, like I have my friend, and he has head wrap on. This is more like this is for the symbolism of him going blind, and the hands are like the omniscient thing that's gonna grab him. It's like the little symbolisms, but I just try to go down to the concrete story of Oedipus. And it's like the smaller things I like to revive. In my in my picture headspace, I wanted to mainly tell a story with his eyes, but I saw that was a problem. So I put a square there in which I really thought was different, and playing with shapes and geometry, inverting colors, making them bright. That really came from a big idea and topic I had about Andy Warhol. And I can just say my whole body of work in total is just mainly a reference, a huge reference.
Hello, I'm Luis Sandoval, and I identify with he, him pronouns. And so just getting right into my work, I investigate how I was molded by my environment to follow gender norms and the limitations that I experienced. As a child, I reciprocated to these rights and wrongs that were taught to me, but through time, as I've developed my own opinions, I have been able to look back at what caused me to change myself. And so through the portrayal of situations and the creation and recreation of objects and toys, I seek to share the confinement I seek to share the confinement I have experienced because of my gender in a visual and tactile way. And so taking a look at my most recent piece, which is a diptych, I took on 2 gendered ways to sit. In the blue, I am manspreading and taking up as much room as possible. And in the pink one, I am in a more feminine pose, and I make myself smaller. And so movement and mannerisms is something that I've always been hyper aware of since I was a kid, from a fear that was instilled in me of appearing feminine. And so this is a way for me to take the power back and sit in a feminine pose, as well as also to represent the stark difference that I grew up between what is considered masculine and what is considered feminine. And so in the next piece, which is titled Magnetic Doll, I give the viewer complete control to choose what they would want me to wear. And in this way, I could represent how I felt for most of my life, limited to a generally masculine assortment of clothing and feeling like I have lost control over the way that I can present myself. So clothes tell you a lot about a person, and in my case, my clothes never really told the true story. Even now, I question whether I truly like something or whether I like wearing it because it makes me feel safe, because it is something that is considered generally masculine. And so that's what my work is about, and that's what those 2 pieces specifically are about. And so I hope you enjoy seeing everyone's work. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Clara Schiavo. I'm Italian and live in Miami. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior at Dash. My fashion work primarily deals with the subject of sustainability and inclusivity. The first piece I want to talk about today is my piece titled Reduce and Reuse. This was my first take on menswear and fully diving in sustainability. So I upcycled a leather jacket and a wool cardigan to create this set of cargo shorts and a cardigan with a fully functioning hoodie. I'm an artist that definitely bases a lot of their work on sustainability and inclusivity, because as a designer, I think it's really important that we recognize that the fashion industry is one of the top most polluting industry with really long-standing toxic traditions. So I think this was just my take and my commentary on how we can better the industry, and it was inspired by Balenciaga and one of their famous quotes, unisex, unisize, uni-everything. The second piece I want to talk about is a piece titled Second Skin. This piece is really important to me because conceptually it was a very hard thing to develop because I had to do a lot of research on how technological and scientific advances are affecting the fashion industry. I researched things such as biodegradable sequins or cement made out of bacteria. And so that's when I decided to create my own biodegradable plastic out of gelatin, glycerin, and water. This piece is part of a collection that pays homage to the life cycle of plants and human anatomy and the different tissues that come with both plants and humans, and kind of comparing the two. I also did a lot of research basing on how scientists think we'll look in the future, and I kind of used organic shapes and strange textures and textiles in my work to kind of reflect on that. The last piece I want to talk about is called Environmental Redemption, and it's my menswear take on the bioplastic garment. Although it's a menswear piece, I wanted to give it a traditionally feminine look because I think that it's really important that androgyny has a representation within the fashion industry, and as trends are evolving and the industry's growing, I think it's really important that everyone is represented, and I feel strongly about that as a member of the LGBTQ+ community. I hope you guys enjoyed. I put my heart and soul into all of this work, and I hope you like it as much as I do.
I'm Lucy Silva, a sculpture artist based in Houston, Texas. My work explores the architectural and geographical landscape around me. My pieces Positive and Negative in Thorncrown Chapel capture Thorncrown Chapel and the environment around it in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. I visited the site and was immediately inspired by not only the light-filled chapel itself, but also the sloping landscape around it. These two pieces represent these features abstractly. My piece titled Pennsylvania Station represents the history of the iconic Pennsylvania Station in New York City. The bottom layer of the piece depicts the beautiful original structure of the station from the early 1900s. The middle portion represents the current cold stone structure of the station, and the top layer depicts the glass addition from 2021.
Hi, my name is Mia Seguino, and I am a visual arts finalist in the Los Angeles area. My portfolio asks, if identity is the culmination of memory, who do we become when we forget? So I was born in the US, but I grew up in Tokyo from ages 5 to 14. And when I moved back to California, I sort of expected my memory of home to stay with me, only to realize how easily I could forget. And so the works in my portfolio sort of share this quality of losing their original state to capture the fallible nature of memory. And when I was researching memory, I found myself delving into topics like displacement, marginalization, and reconstruction, especially as a way to reclaim obscured narratives, which is a practice I've really tried to dedicate my time to, both within and outside of my art. And I will now go deeper into 3 of my selected works. So first, in Ruins of Memory, I drew a scene 8 feet tall of my childhood in Tokyo on Post-its, which are traditionally used to remember things, and I then used fans to blow them off, and I stood in the scene as it fell apart. In Recreating a Sanctuary, I wanted to examine the physical monuments we create in order to return to the past, and the bedsheets sort of enwrap this old family portrait to evoke the sense of being held by childhood. And I was inspired by the allegory of the cave, in which our realities are mere projections onto the wall. And in Atlantis Reimagined, I explore the fallible nature of memory at a larger scale, history, or more specifically, historical amnesia. And I collaged articles on the forgotten history of discrimination against Asian Americans, along with photos of my grandparents' relocation to Japanese internment camps. And I created a cityscape out of this collage. And by flooding the tank, I examined how we rely on deteriorating materials like memory to construct history and who we forget in this process. Through this destruction, I seek to uplift unheard narratives. Thank you for listening, and I hope my work speaks to you.
Hi, I'm Danielle Sang, a mixed media artist from Seoul, Korea, currently based in Exeter, New Hampshire. My artistic concentration focuses on racism, to apprise viewers of major and urgent issues that cause instability and friction amongst people. For this exhibition, 3 pieces were selected: Jump Over Fences, Peace Amongst Chaos, and Weight on Father's Shoulders. In these series of works, I used pieces of air-dry clay and painted on top of them with sumi ink after the clay had dried. For each piece, I accentuated specific areas: the fence, the police shields, and the poster by creating a relief. Jump Over Fences is a relief created depicting one of the most unforgettable moments I witnessed on the news 2 years ago. It accentuates an individual striving to jump over a pointy fence, risking everything they have. Peace Amongst Chaos focuses on the literal chaos present in our society today regarding the relationship with police brutality, capturing the moment in which two groups of people, the protesters and the police, existing in the same scene. Finally, Weight on Father's Shoulders illustrates the Asian hate present in our society. The title was created in both a literal and figurative sense. While the young girl is on top of father's shoulders, holding a sign, reinforcing her sense of belonging as an Asian American in society, there's also the figurative weight the father is holding. The pressure to make sure that the Asian hate is not passed down to his daughter, to the future generations, that it stops now. Through my work, I'm no longer a witness nor a spectator. Rather, art allows me to become a catalyst or at least a conveyor of problems. I want to capture this social goal with strokes of ink and in bold, defiant hues. With these means, I intend to empower those that have been silenced, bring their issues to light, and advocate for change. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Anna Bismantis, and I am from Boca Raton, Florida. When I first started doing photography, I started with street and landscape photography, where I would use natural daylight from the sun. And as I became more advanced, I started experimenting with other techniques that I had never used before. So my Young Arts photo series actually came about when my photography teacher gave me an assignment where I was supposed to combine night photography and tableau photography into one series. I actually wasn't very happy with what I came out the first time, so I decided to go back and improve the images that I had shot. And this is where my Young Arts photo series was born. So in my photo series, I decided to take my pictures at night and use warm lighting to bring about a eerie, sort of strange feeling to my work. And I also wanted it to seem like the people inside of the house were being watched from the outside by an unknown being. And I've definitely been inspired by all the horror movies that I've seen throughout my life. So I definitely wanted to incorporate the sort of strange, uncomfortable feeling that you get while you're watching horror movies into my own work. And although I intended for my work to have this haunting feeling, I made sure to make my images open-ended and allow my viewers to create their own stories behind what my photos really mean. And I believe that photography is the best way to share stories, and I hope to continue being able to share my stories with people around the world during the years to come.
Hello, my name is Jo Zhang, and I'm a 2022 Young Arts Finalist in the Visual Arts discipline. So for my YA portfolio, I wanted to talk about the pandemic and COVID-19 in general. So I wanted to honor frontline healthcare workers and just express my gratitude for those who put their lives at risk to help us. And for my first piece for this exhibition, I used materials such as color pencil, watercolor, and newspaper. So I just wanted to capture the emotion of grief, I guess, and overall sadness, and you can see the two people hugging. And for the background, I just wanted to use newspaper as a way to make the people in the front stand out. And I used color pencil because I wanted to capture more realism and wanted to experiment with realism. And for my second piece, I used color pencil as well, and also newspaper. And I also again wanted to capture the emotion of sadness, because we have to think about it from the point of view of healthcare workers, because they have to deal with loss on the daily. They experience so much, and I feel so grateful that they are there for us. And if you look closely at the piece and you look closely at the newspaper, it's related to COVID-19, and I chose that specifically because I wanted to just tie in the general idea of the pandemic. And for my third piece, I experimented with a lot of new mediums such as yarn and saran wrap that I never used before. So for the saran wrap, I wanted to use it to make it look like the nurse's suit. And again, the newspaper in the background just as a cool detail. And the yarn is supposed to like represent light. The idea of light is often like connected with the idea of hope. And that idea of hope is really important for all of us right now in like the given circumstances. And yeah, that's my Young Arts portfolio. Thank you for listening.